Hey, Coach, congratulations on the win. Anthony
Thank
Merced,
you.
AJM Sports. You had to play some players in, I wouldn't want to say necessarily out of position, but in positions that they haven't been playing at, definitely at least this year. How do you feel like they did, and how do you feel like the team reacted given the situation that they needed to be in with injuries and such?
Which players do you mean? I'm not certain who you mean.
Hannes Wolf in particular, who's normally we've seen in a more advanced role, and maybe Perea, who maybe a little bit more has been an attacking player, but more so in the midfield than kind of. It seemed like he was more on the wing.
That's interesting perspective. I disagree. Looking at the first half, mainly, I think you could see if you go back into this game that Hannes was playing as a left winger and had to support the defense by times, especially in the final phase of the first half. But he was doing a tremendous job creating a situation for the wing-back of the opponent to not play his favorite game. And it gave us an extra attacker because Andres Pereira is an offensive midfield player, and he had to defend at times from the left side, but he was, especially in the first half, I think 90% of the time in an offensive midfield position. He got 2-3 good quality moments in the box when the cross came from the right side. So getting back to the original question, how did they do? I'm very pleased with the both of them.
Scott, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, how are you? Scott Schertz in Stream Punk Soccer. Congrats on the 3 points, big 3 points in this case. Talk a little bit about the game plan. Denke and Evander had 5 goals in the last 2 matches leading up to this, and the team won 5 straight. So there was a lot of pressure on you to stop both of them. How did you prep for that, and how did the team prep for that? Thanks.
Pressure on us, you mean? I'm not playing, unfortunately, anymore. But the guys did well. As I mentioned to your colleague just now, I think we did a very, very stable, aggressive, energized performance out of possession. Regained possession a few times already on their half in the first half. So the guys did a really good job. Knowing that you play against quality players up front from the opponent always brings a little more focus on what you can expect. But other than that, I saw my players prepare themselves like any other game. And they made it quite difficult for these guys to be in their best positions to create something towards our goal, which is a huge compliment to the whole team, but also to the individuals who had to take care of it.
We're going to go with Andrew, followed by John.
Hi, I'm Andrew Lee with Hudson River Blue.
Andrew.
Keaton Parks had to come off pretty early. You've spoken about how important he is to your team and what you want to do. It's a 2-part question, I guess. Is this the same issue that he's been dealing with since Columbus when he had to come off as well in that game in like the first 35 minutes? And then how do you think the rest of the midfield handled his absence, given you've mentioned it being sort of a cause for concern in the past when he's had to come out?
Yeah, and it's still a concern because Keats has a problem with his foot. He's been adjusting one of his boots in order to deal with the matter. He's had a couple of good weeks. We were surprised what happened today because it was in a different place in his foot, but he pushed himself also by request, another 10-15 minutes or so, but then the pain was too much and he had to come off. And then, as I mentioned a few times earlier also, I'm very fortunate to have players that have the flexibility to play in several positions. And so when Burke came on, it was an easy one for Justin to move up on the pitch and play in midfield together with Johnny and with Maxi, and kept his level in the game at a very high level, which is a big compliment to Justin as well.
John?
Hey, Coach, congrats again on the win.
Thank you.
John Bainey, Footy Banter. With the Open Cup game out in Pittsburgh just in 2 or so days now, really quick turnaround, how much rotation can we expect from your side? And I guess how much, is your camp prioritizing this competition alongside MLS and other competitions?
Yeah, it's a good question. That's something I'm going to think about tonight because the only thing on my mind until half an hour ago was Cincinnati. And now I'm going to start and think about the Open Cup and how to deal with that. And that's also how I do my business. I've done it in the past 30 years, just focus on each and every game and focus on that only instead of looking over the fence towards the other games ahead. We have a challenging schedule ahead. We're trying to get 9 games in the month of May, and we've had now one against Cincinnati, a good win, and now the focus goes on to the next one. So you'll have to wait and see if rotations will be there or not.
Elon?
Hey, Coach. Halen from Five Borough Footy. Hooley had a good start to the season, and then the form sort of dipped a little bit, and then he followed that up with an amazing game today. Even outside of the goal, a lot of his decision-making on and off the ball was really good. Could you talk a little bit about that, what he's been doing in training, or just how he's been developing in that?
Yeah, interesting. Hooley is a guy who had to deal with several situations since I've been here. He had a very good preseason, a good start at the season of the MLS, but he's only 21, so it will go like this and that. So we're trying to get more consistency in the whole team, including Hooley. But as always with creative attacking players, they need to have this good feel. Today was that moment. He showed his quality on and off the ball. Decisions were good. I just saw the goal again. It's high quality, very high quality. Spins it off the goalkeeper. Like he's been training as a maniac every day. You guys remember when I took him off before halftime? That's a tough blow to take. And then I'm always curious how these guys get into the building the next training. And he just went at it again and worked even harder than he did before. And that says a lot about his character, his personality. So I'm very grateful that I'm able to help him develop this. And what he showed tonight is a very, very important step in the right direction.
Final one, we'll go with Max.
Hey, Coach. Max, Footy Banter here. I know you mentioned earlier in the first question had to do with sort of the shape, but my question has to do with potential of a back 3 at the start of the game to maybe counter the back 5 that you were seeing. And it looked like since he had switched at the second half, was there a tactical change that you had to make in that second half, or was it the same game plan that you had started with that you carried out throughout the entire 90?
Yeah. So going into the game, one thing we had to solve was the loss of Kevin O'Toole. So there's a few things that we could do, and we chose what you guys saw in the first half with Hannes and Pepe coming on as well. Final part of the first half, you could already see that we're trying to overload our left side and get Hannes in a more vulnerable position. But like we talked about in preparing this game, you will only get into these situations when you don't take care of the ball. And in that phase, our standards were going down, and we lost possession way too easy, and that meant that Hannes had to defend more than the previous 30 minutes into the game. The second half, I said to my coaching staff, just make sure that we're aware of their changes in halftime, because I could expect a counter move considering this situation. And they did. So they posted one of their number 10s on the right side and tried to pin Hannes. So to get Hannes in a more offensive position would take us a longer time to get him there. But we anticipated. So we had Nico Cavallo already stand by if we needed to change, and he was aware of what he needed to do and what he could expect. And that's what they showed after the sub again. So that's a big compliment to the guys.